Imagine boarding your next flight, buckling in, and considering for a moment that the jet engines roaring outside are powered, not by oil or fossil fuels, but by something far less glamorous, your own sewage. That's not science fiction. Just weeks ago, Wizz Air shocked the world by announcing a blockbuster deal to buy sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF, made from treated human waste. The story practically writes its own headlines, planes flying on poop. But behind the irresistible clickbait is a revolution that could transform the trillion-dollar global aviation industry, slash carbon emissions, and reshape how we think about energy, waste, and the future of travel. Nobody expected the path to net zero to run through our toilets. Yet here we are, and the implications are a lot deeper than jokes about number 2 powering your 737. What's actually happening in aviation, energy, and global transportation isn't just a quirky corporate PR stunt. It's a profound signal. The world's airlines are betting not on fantasy solutions, not on magical hydrogen planes or miracle batteries, but on real chemistry, real waste, and real change. So what led us to this moment, and what does it tell us about the fate of oil, electrification, and the future of global commerce? Let's pull back the curtain on the fast-changing world of sustainable aviation fuel and unpack the scientific, economic, and geopolitical forces driving this radical shift. Because if sewage can take to the skies, what else is possible? To answer that, we need to understand what makes aviation so stubbornly hard to decarbonize. Unlike cars or city buses, you can't easily slap a battery pack on a 250-ton jet and expect it to soar across the Atlantic. The physics are brutal. Jet fuel packs massive energy into a lightweight, portable form. Electric planes, while promising for short hops, simply can't compete on longer routes, at least not yet. Even the most optimistic engineers admit that battery energy densities need to triple or quadruple before we see fully electric long-haul flights. That's why, for decades, the aviation industry has been a climate laggard. While the rest of the world talks about electric cars and wind farms, planes kept burning kerosene, billions of gallons each year, dumping CO2 directly into the upper atmosphere. And yet, the pressure to change has never been higher. Regulatory mandates are getting tougher. Europe's new Refuel EU aviation initiative will require airlines to use a minimum of 2% SAF by 2025, ramping up to a staggering 70% by 2050. In the US, the government's aiming for 3 billion gallons of SAF by 2030, a jaw-dropping 9,000% increase from 2021. What exactly is SAF? Sustainable aviation fuel is a catch-all term for non-fossil jet fuels that promise sharp CO2 reductions. But not all SAF is created equal. The earliest versions, so-called first-generation biofuels, came from crops like corn, soy, or palm oil. That sparked a controversial food versus fuel debate, raising valid concerns about land use, deforestation, and food price spikes. For years, many experts dismissed biofuels as a dead end, tainted by those hard lessons. But the aviation industry, and its scientists, didn't give up. Over the last decade, researchers mapped out a new strategy: advanced biofuels, made not from food, but from waste. Municipal solid waste, forestry byproducts, even the residue from making paper. All these discarded resources can be liquefied, refined, and blended into powerful drop-in jet fuel. And as Michael Barnard, one of the industry's leading strategists, points out, the waste streams we're currently mismanaging could supply well over 500 million tons of low-carbon fuel annually. No new farmland required, no trade-off between food and fuel, just a redirection of waste into the energy system. The numbers are staggering. Europe generates more than 1.5 billion tons of livestock manure every year. The world squanders 2.5 billion tons of food. If even a fraction of it is transformed into fuel, the math finally starts to add up, and the airline industry may have found its golden ticket to sustainability. Let's look at the chemistry. Firefly Green Fuels, the startup supplying Wizz Air, claims their SAF delivers a 92% reduction in life cycle CO2 emissions compared to fossil jet fuel. LanzaTech, another leader in the field, uses bacteria to convert industrial waste gases into alcohol, then turns that alcohol into jet fuel. Their alcohol-to-jet (ATJ) process is so effective, it's now certified for blending at up to 50% with regular kerosene. Meanwhile, the Fischer-Tropsch (FT) process, first invented by German scientists in the 1920s, can convert almost any carbon-rich biomass into synthetic fuel, also certified for aviation use. So, Why the sudden explosion in SAF deals, like Wizz Air's headline-grabbing contract? Partly it's the regulatory hammer, but it's also a recognition that the world's demand for liquid fuels is peaking, not surging. According to new projections, global oil demand for transportation may already have topped out and is set to plummet by up to 80% as road vehicles go electric. What's left, aviation and shipping, are precisely the sectors where batteries and hydrogen struggle to compete. In other words, the last stand for liquid fuels isn't our highways, it's our flight paths and shipping lanes. And the SAF revolution isn't limited to Europe or quirky startups. Neste, the Finnish oil refining giant, now runs a Singapore plant pumping out 1 million tons of SAF every year. The U.S. Department of Energy is pouring billions into scaling up American supply chains. Even MIT researchers are extracting lignin, a tough, woody residue from papermaking, to make next-generation biojet fuel, helping airlines inch closer to the world's ambitious CO2 targets for 2050. The momentum is real. IATA, the International Air Transport Association, forecasts SAF production could reach 1.5 million tons this year, a 5-fold jump since 2022. The ICCT, an independent clean transportation think tank, expects sustainable fuel to make up as much as 65% of airline demand by mid-century. SAF is an important issue, and ultimately, consumers will be willing to pay, insists IATA's Director General Willie Walsh. But here's the catch. Revolutionary as it is, waste-derived SAF faces some huge obstacles, and its rise exposes deeper, messier truths about the global energy transition. First, scalability. Can we really collect, process, and refine enough human waste, manure, forestry scrap, and landfill gas to supply not just one airline but an entire planet's worth of jet fuel? Right now, the volumes are tiny. Even Europe's biggest SAF mandates barely scratch the surface of what's needed. And as James Highgate, Firefly's CEO, puts it, opening up this new sewage pathway will bring new jobs and growth, but hitting scale is the real challenge. Second, the economics. SAF remains expensive, sometimes 2 to 4 times pricier than traditional kerosene. That price premium is narrowing, thanks to economies of scale and technological improvements, but it's still a major deterrent for most airlines. The question is, who pays? Will governments subsidize the shift? Will passengers accept higher fares for greener flying? These are open questions, and the answers will determine how fast the transformation happens. Third, logistics and policy. Building the infrastructure to collect, transport, and refine vast amounts of waste is no small feat. Cities and airports would need new pipelines, storage tanks, and blending facilities. Regulations must evolve to ensure safety and traceability, while avoiding unintended consequences like feedstock hoarding or environmental damage. And finally, there are dangers lurking under the hood. What if scaling SAF inadvertently triggers new risks, say, by promoting the mass burning of agricultural residues, leading to air pollution spikes? What if the world's appetite for greener jet fuel starts to outstrip the available waste streams, forcing a return to food crops or even new land conversion? History is full of green dreams that morphed into environmental nightmares. Meanwhile, the hype around other solutions, like cheap hydrogen or miracle batteries, has yet to deliver. Yvonne Moynihan, ESG officer at Wizz Air, says, "We see things progressing very slowly with hydrogen, so we've really shifted our focus to sustainable aviation fuel as the future. But the pivot isn't risk-free. Hydrogen fuel cells remain stubbornly costly. Electrolyzers, the machines that split water into hydrogen and oxygen, are capital-intensive, and their economics depend entirely on electricity that's reliably cheap and always available. In many renewables-heavy countries, surges of cheap power appear only fleetingly, rendering hydrogen production frustratingly expensive and intermittent. California's infamous duck curve isn't just an energy geek meme, it's a warning sign. As for traditional oil, the writing is on the wall. With ground transport rapidly electrifying and maritime shipping fuel demand projected to collapse by more than half, the old certainties about liquid fuel are over. Aviation stands alone, a last bastion for high-density energy that batteries and hydrogen struggle to replace. So the stakes are massive. We're not just talking about keeping planes in the sky. We're talking about billions in jobs, global supply chains, rural economies, and the geopolitical balance of energy. If waste-based SAF works, it could decarbonize one of the world's toughest sectors and redefine what we call waste. If it fails, the climate math for aviation, and maybe the whole net zero project, starts to fall apart. The big question is, Can the SAF miracle scale up fast enough to meet soaring demand, keep costs in check, and do so without creating new problems for society or the environment? Or will we hit a hard ceiling, where the dream of green flying runs smack into reality? Right now, the world is watching, waiting, and betting big, but the answer is far from clear. And as the first planes powered by human waste prepare for takeoff, the next chapter in this story promises to be even wilder, full of breakthroughs, setbacks, and tough choices. What happens next may surprise you. But will the green flight revolution really take off, or are we about to hit unexpected turbulence? To answer this, let's project ourselves into the future of aviation, where every ton of jet fuel burned has to justify both its carbon footprint and its price tag. Imagine you're standing in a busy airport terminal in the year 2040. Planes line the runways, but the fuel powering them is no longer straight from oil wells. Instead, it's made from the world's waste: biosolids, spoiled food, farm byproducts, even what's flushed down the drains of cities like London or Singapore. Airlines no longer see sewage as a liability. They treat it as liquid gold, a feedstock for low-carbon SAF. It sounds like sci-fi, but the wheels are turning faster than most people realize. The IATA projects SAF production could multiply five-fold in just a few years. The EU's Refuel EU initiative will soon require every airline in European skies to blend in sustainable fuels, ratcheting up to a staggering 70% by 2050. In Singapore, Neste's plant already churns out 1 million tons of SAF each year, enough to fuel thousands of long-haul flights. And in the US, the Department of Energy is pushing for a 9,000% increase in SAF supply by 2030. We're witnessing the construction of an entire new industrial ecosystem. Municipal water treatment plants are partnering with innovative startups to transform sewage into jet-grade hydrocarbons. Forestry companies monetize their waste branches. Farmers send leftover straw to biorefineries instead of burning it. Startups like Firefly Green Fuels have proven that biosolids can slash life cycle emissions by over 90%, while MIT researchers are experimenting with lignin, a byproduct of paper mills, as the next big step in advanced SAF. James Highgate, CEO of Firefly, put it bluntly: "Opening up this new sewage pathway will bring new jobs and growth, helping us to secure a greener and more prosperous future." But there's a catch. For all this momentum, SAF still faces daunting risks. The grand SAF vision depends on solving three major problems: cost, scale, and feedstock sustainability. Today, SAF is 2 to 5 times more expensive than traditional jet fuel. Even with government mandates, airlines are nervous about passing higher costs on to price-sensitive travelers, and wary of greenwashing accusations if their supply chains aren't genuinely sustainable. Then there's the feedstock conundrum. The best SAF comes from waste and residues, but waste isn't infinite. Scaling up SAF means tapping into new waste streams, navigating complex logistics, and ensuring we don't drift back into the mistakes of first-generation biofuels, raiding food crops or causing deforestation. The International Council on Clean Transportation warns that if we cut corners, we risk creating new environmental disasters even as we solve old ones. Technology offers some hope. Processes like hydroprocessed esters and fatty acids, HEFA, and Fischer-Tropsch synthesis are maturing. Newer methods, like alcohol-to-jet and gas fermentation, expand the types of waste we can use. LanzaTech's alcohol-to-jet technology is now certified for up to a 50% blend with fossil jet fuel. But building the thousands of facilities required to meet global demand isn't just about engineering. It's about massive investment, smart policy, and robust supply chains. And don't count on batteries or hydrogen to bail us out anytime soon. As Yvonne Moynihan from Wizz Air bluntly put it, "We see things progressing very slowly with hydrogen, so we've really shifted our focus to sustainable aviation fuel as the future." Yet what if there's an unexpected upside? If the world's trucks, cars, and trains go electric over the coming decades, as projections now show, liquid fuel demand won't soar higher, it will plummet. According to Michael Barnard's modeling, we could need only a fraction of today's jet fuel by 2050, with most land transport shifted to electrons. That means the competition for waste-derived SAF might not be as intense as many fear. In this world, all that's left for liquid fuels to power is long-distance jets and the last few ocean freighters. The big question may shift from, how can we make enough SAF, to, what should we do with the waste streams we once buried or burned? Of course, risks remain. What if the waste feedstocks themselves shrink as efficiency improves and we waste less? What if supply chains break down due to geopolitics or climate shocks? And will passengers accept higher ticket prices in the name of decarbonization? IATA's Director General Willie Walsh is cautiously optimistic. SAF is an important issue, and ultimately, consumers will be willing to pay. But will that hold when prices bite, or if some countries cheat the rules? Let's pause here. This future isn't automatic. It depends on a web of decisions, by governments, airlines, technologists, and yes, by us as passengers. Policies like carbon pricing, aggressive blending mandates, and investment in SAF infrastructure are all crucial. If these align, SAF could become the aviation norm within 2 decades. If not, we risk a fractured landscape of green and dirty skies, divided by who can afford to invest and who's stuck with old tech. So what does this mean for you, watching this video from your living room or office? First, it means the next time you fly, your ticket might include a small SAF fee, a charge to help airlines buy or invest in these cleaner fuels. Already, major carriers are experimenting with optional surcharges, and some governments propose mandatory ones. If you see it, know it's not just greenwash. It may be funding real change. Second, it's a reminder that the climate solutions of tomorrow are often hidden in plain sight. Who would have imagined a few years ago that human sewage could be powering international flights, or that food waste could keep transatlantic jets aloft? If you work in waste management, agriculture, or city government, the waste streams you manage may soon become valuable commodities in the energy transition. Third, and maybe most importantly, it means that the big, hard-to-electrify sectors of our economy are not immune to change. For too long, the story has been, let's save the easy stuff, cars, homes, and worry about planes and ships later. But now, no sector can hide. The lessons of SAF show that bold policy, new chemistry, and relentless innovation can drag even the most stubborn sectors into the clean energy age. If you're a student or young professional interested in climate or engineering, pay close attention. The next decade will see explosive growth in SAF infrastructure, waste-to-fuel startups, and municipal industrial partnerships. Careers will be made, maybe yours, helping turn trash into takeoff. If you're concerned about greenwashing, dig deeper. Ask questions when you see airlines touting their green credentials. Are they actually using waste-derived SAF or simply buying offsets? Transparency will be key, demanded as a consumer. Support real regulatory oversight, as much for the planet as for your own travel conscience. And if you're tempted to dismiss all this as unrealistic, remember the words of the experts. As the ICCT's Vision for 2050 notes, decarbonizing aviation is possible, but only if we deploy every tool, SAF, efficiency, and new technology. That's not a pipe dream, it's now a roadmap. So, let's circle back to the big question. Can SAF scale up fast and affordably enough to decarbonize aviation, or will hidden obstacles stall the green flight revolution? Here's the honest answer. SAF alone won't instantly erase aviation's carbon footprint, but it absolutely can become the backbone of a decarbonized flight network if we combine rapid technological rollout, aggressive policy, and smart use of waste streams. The good news? With electrification devouring most other transport liquid fuel needs and a mountain of waste waiting to be used, the math is finally on SAF's side. The bad news? It's a race against time, regulation, and cost. But for the first time, the vision isn't fantasy, it's under construction. And now for a secret fact, one even many climate experts miss. SAF is not just about flying greener. Every ton we make from biosolids slashes methane from waste facilities, one of the planet's most potent greenhouse gases. In other words, SAF kills 2 birds with 1 stone. It shrinks our aviation emissions and tackles an invisible source of climate pollution. So next time you look up and see a contrail streaking across the sky, remember, that plane might soon be fueled by yesterday's leftovers, sewage, or the straw from last year's wheat harvest. The future is coming in for landing, whether we're ready or not. If you learned something new today, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more deep dives into the real trends